All right, hello everybody. Thank you for joining. Look, I'm Jace Moreno, by the way, and I'm the Skype for Business product manager from Microsoft here in Australia. And I was telling Biagio earlier, today's a really proud day for me particularly. I think it's amazing to have one of your best partners throw a conference on your behalf. But more than that, when we talked about putting this conference together, what I was most excited about was the fact that our customers and our partners were leading the content. So you get to hear real, raw, candid insights, challenges, best practices around these deployments that you all are looking into possibly taking. And to give you a little context about how we wanted to start today, we want to lay a foundation for what you're going to hear today. I think at Microsoft, we are very good about bringing our customers and our partners in and showing you these immersion experiences and these executive briefings on how well we use our own technology and how it enables us to do more and be more. But we sometimes forget, and I'll show you here on the slide, we sometimes forget to show you this. How do I get there, right? And that's what today's all about. It's about transitions. It's about showing you from some of our best customers how we actually get there. And I'm really excited to bring up the three gentlemen today because they all come from three very different businesses. So you can see that they had to roll out this innovation at a change that made sense for their organizations. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce the three gentlemen we have coming up. I have Ashlen Naicker coming up from Adelaide Zoos. Come on up, Ashlen. Bill Vargas, coming up from the Sydney Children's Hospital Networks, and Kerr from Plantronics. So if you take a look at these three before we get started here, we have a zoo, we have one of our top unified communications partners, and we have a Children's Hospital Network. So it couldn't be three more different organizations, and you'll see that they rolled out Skype for Business and formerly Link as in very different paces, and that's what I'm excited to show today. So gentlemen, I took a little bit of your thunder by introducing you guys, if that's okay. But we have 30 minutes, so I want to hop into this. Bill, I'd love for you to start if that's okay. And what I'm thinking we talk about is why business justifications and business reasons why you decided to go with Link, which is now, of course, Skype for Business, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, okay. Probably first of all, I think mine's a personal story. I mean, Microsoft was fairly kind, and we started with OCS previously, and we've got a school within the hospital at Westmead. And so the idea was to actually communicate from the classroom to the patients by the bedside. The take-up of that wasn't as great as we expected, and we were pushing it, but we had OCS there at that time. I was going through a midlife crisis, and at 51, I actually was playing indoor soccer, and I ruptured my Achilles. So I was laid off for 2 months. So I said, how could I continue with the business? And at the same time, we had amalgamated with the Sydney Children's Hospital at Randwick. So we became one organisation. And so we were continuing the business, and I started using OCS as a way of communicating to my staff. And that when I came back to work, I discovered that our senior executive were travelling either from Westmead to Randwick or from Randwick to Westmead continuously because of the politics that two separate organisations working together becoming one. And they were spending half the day travelling in the Sydney traffic because they had to be there personally at the meetings and arrange that. So I said, well, why can't we use Link? So I introduced it into all the boardrooms and meeting rooms, and that started at the executive level and on their desktops. So that take-up was very quick. It started from the top, and it's worked itself down. It met a business needs that people didn't have to travel. And what we also introduced was the Polycom Roundtable, which is previously a Microsoft product, which we had there also. So all the rooms are fitted. So the experience was totally different to the VC experience, which they were problematic. They had, from a boardroom, they had to face one way, and it just didn't lend itself. They couldn't share content properly, and so the ease of use of that product linked to Exchange was, a game changer from our perspective, and it has continued to go down that path. We've progressed it further from that. We have telemedicine, so we have clinicians holding clinics via Link. We're running Link 2003 still currently. To Armidale, Orange, Dubbo, and they link back to whoever they choose to via the internet. So it's the take-up has been quite good. Our limitations has been our bandwidth in certain instances externally, and so now we have better bandwidth. We're going to be expanding it much more.
Oh, thank you very much, Bill. So appreciate it. And that's actually a good transition over to you, Ashlen, because I know we've spoken about this. I believe traveling between both of your zoos was one of the initial reasons, and I know there were more. So if you don't mind touching on your personal story there with the business.
So the Adelaide Zoo found itself in a bit of trouble in 2009, and since then we've picked ourselves up. It involved a complete infrastructure overhaul, and we didn't have any means of connecting the two zoos together, bearing in mind that the two zoos are a 90-minute round trip between each other. So I saw an opportunity to start connecting the staff between the zoos. We often have operations between the two zoos, and staff wanted to participate in these sort of operations, etc. And after evaluating many software applications out there, we found that Skype for Business sort of sealed the deal for us, and we started rolling it out. It was primarily developed for an office application at first. Funny enough, it's the age of the customer. We then decided to take it out to our visitors and sort of add a value add for them when they come in to enhance their experience at the zoo. Further than that, we've done some bizarre things with Skype for Business. We started broadcasting on big screens around the zoo. So we've got a 7-meter square ultra def on our central lawn area. And the visitors have the opportunity to watch live examinations of animals, etc., in the animal healthcare facility. We've also started using it for training and development between the sites as well. Further than that, it has improved the way we work at Zoos SA in all realms of the business. That's sort of the business and the excitement part of it. So yeah.
That was great though, because one of Biagio's questions to Stephen and to Tim earlier was how do you see video coming forward, right? You guys have completely adopted this in your organization, not only to utilize it internally and have best practices shared between your zoos, but also to have better customer engagement.
Correct.
And we actually have a great video coming out with these guys here, I believe today. So very great customer story. Appreciate you both sharing that. Thank you. I'm going to go a little different route with Dawn being one of our partners. Plantronics just rolled out Skype for Business from Link formerly to about a 3,000 person organization very quickly. And so I'd love you to touch upon that experience if you wouldn't mind taking a little different route there.
Sure, and part of this is me as an employee inside of Plantronics and now a Skype for Business user. The transition for us from Link 2013 to Skype for Business, as soon as the Skype for Business client went general availability, it was made available for any employee inside of Plantronics on a come and get it basis. I'll present some more stats on usage and uptake, etc., in a session later on this afternoon. But we found it was about between a third and a quarter of all employees chose to self-provision the new client. By May the 19th, we had fully deployed the Skype for Business client globally across our 2,700 employees. Our server platform upgrade is currently in train and will be completed by the end of June. So we will be a fully provisioned Skype for Business enterprise voice video collaboration business by the end of this month. And from a business engagement perspective, the success of Link 2013 in transforming how Plantronics conducted business both internally and also engaging with our partner channel meant that our executive bought in on the basis of a business transformation, and the technology was an underpinning to that. So yeah, a rapid adoption for us, which has gone quite well so far.
Appreciate that. So good transition there too. So when I'm looking at the next question I want to talk about, we hear this from customers all the time, and many of you probably have a similar situation in here, is you already have multiple unified communication solutions in your current environments at your work, right? Might have multiple vendors, and the whole challenge is how do I create one identity? How do I overlay something that'll give me one identity to seamlessly communicate to everybody in my organization and outside of my organization? So on that topic, would love, if you'd like to start again, Bill, on the previous platform that you were on, what the migration experience was like. And I'd love a candid view on this, if you would. Some of the challenges so everybody here can really hear what it was like to go through this process.
Sorry. Probably on the video end, and I think that's where we mostly utilise Link currently. We had the VC units in discrete places throughout the organisation, and it was fairly problematic because the users were using it not on a regular basis, very intermittently, and you'd have to have a technician at times be there to actually help them with the session. And so when we introduce Link and introduce it at the executive level and in those meeting areas, the ease of use that, from an Exchange, so you log into Exchange or you set up a meeting, it was highlighted that we didn't need those VC units. So they were phased out very quickly. So in most areas we still have some. In relation to unified communications side of it, we utilise, again, Link within the office environment. So a lot of our staff now have their own webcams on there. So we still have phones, and you can talk to each other by phone or by Link, but a lot of us choose by Link. We have mobile Link clients, on our, I have an iPhone, sorry, but it's basically, it's on my iPhone, and I can see presence, and from here I can actually talk to my staff and or talk to people within our organisation. So it has been taken from that perspective, but the ease of use is primarily what has driven the actual change in our organisation.
Perfect. Ashlen, care to respond to that one?
Yeah, ours came about with the success of SharePoint. So after we had a proper collaboration services or system in place, I thought we'll go to the next level and add that personal touch to it, where bring it all together with Exchange, SharePoint, and then sort of a face-to-face. And that's where the at the time Link 2013 came into play. And we attacked it from the executive level as well. So we took it from the top down. We introduced it to the directors and the leadership team, and they drove the change downwards. And the adoption of Skype for Business has been quite good at the zoo. More and more we find our keepers, our ground staff, they're actually using it at ground level to show certain, if animals have particular bad days, they can call on the vet who might be at Minato, or he might be in China, and they get a real world response on the fly. There's no waiting. So that face-to-face contact, and then taking into play, everything that we do now is on SharePoint as well. So they have the ability to lodge the incident at the same time onto SharePoint, and then it just completes that collaborative service. So using all the products.
So may I ask, before SharePoint, what was the platform you guys were currently using, or was that where you started?
Again, we had nothing at the time, and
Nothing.
I saw this as an opportunity to build something unique with all the Microsoft, the new products that came out at the time, the suite, and put it all together and see, if it does work, which it has. Not to say that we didn't have trouble setting everything up and getting it to run. So Adelaide's a very small place. We regard it as a special country town, and support was the issue that we battled with out there. But we found great partners in Perth, etc., that sort of guided us along the way. So, we forgot about all that. It's been a huge success for us.
That's great. Actually, you touched on one point too that is a great segue into the next question I want to cover, and I'd love Dawn to start here, about the top-down approach and how you actually create adoption within an organization. And this will be touched on today, but it's past technology, right? You need to consider your culture and also the design of your environment in a workplace. And so, Dawn, I know this is near and dear to your heart as one of our great partners worldwide. If you wouldn't mind touching on that, what I'm thinking is internal and external considerations around adoption and user engagement when you're rolling out a new solution like Skype for Business or formerly Link.
Yeah, so inside of Plantronics, the IT team took a couple of specific approaches around supporting user adoption. First, and I found quite interesting in discussing with our CIO, was actually engaging with the executive assistants in each line of business, because they were often the people who had the pulse of what was happening in that department and would feed back the issues from that department that individual staff may not log with the IT help desk. So they became a really key important conduit, and they weren't necessarily champions, but they were brought very early on board into the deployment planning, and also looking at it for those people and inside of their departments, what was the right end device for them. As much as we're a device manufacturer and everyone gets to pick and choose, what sort of particular end audio device they use, there's still a consideration that needed to take place there. So that was one, engaging with the EAs. And the second was in leveraging social in the enterprise as a training, an update, and an ad hoc support tool. So as we went live with Skype for Business client, our social platform had an environment there where users could post questions, and there were other users who were early adopters that were starting to answer those. How do I do a video call? How do I pull someone in who's a Skype end user? How do I bring a federated partner into this? I'm having a challenge getting my headset working with Skype for Business as everyone else got call control working on it. That took a workload away from the help desk, but let them see what sort of issues were happening. So engaging the executive assistants and leveraging social as a support tool.
I love hearing that because we were just in with a couple customers recently at Microsoft, and that idea came out is we're going to bring in our executive assistants. We're going to bring in some of our different line of business owners. And those conversations we had were unbelievable, and they were giving insights into the CIOs on exactly how people were really using the products and software so they could get that real world experience. So that's great. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Bill, I know we haven't touched on this one with you. Ashlen, you shared a little bit about this. What about rolling out at the hospital network? Because literally you have lives on the line if you don't roll out your technology properly. And when you're having a changeover like this, I'm assuming it's very important not only to have the executive level buy-in, but everybody across the organization. So what did that look like for you guys?
As I said, we started top down. It was fairly easy from the perspective. Again, we did have some how-to and some issues and technical, and fortunately we've got a training team, and they would actually resolve the problem through the help desk, but also give guides and create tips and and even little e-learning modules for them as we came across how to, and that went down fairly well. But the fact is, we were an exchange user, had been for quite a while. Our business is slightly different, so collaboration is the electronic medical record, and that information for core business, and so that is available throughout the organisation. We scan paper, we've got medical imaging coming across, and so forth. So to be able to share that across, also using Link to have a discussion, was quite useful at times if they're remote sites internally, they are able to access it. But I think that the fact that it was just added on service from our perspective, and something that they could talk to each other. All of us are getting sick of email, and I think using email and some collaboration, we still could spend a lot of time. I think what health is still back in the basics where they want to talk to each other. So, and this facilitates that face to face, so it makes it so much easier to do.
So I know it's big for you, and we touched on this earlier, driving between your two campuses. Saved a ton of downtime, ton of costs. I believe talking to John that you had to reserve cars to go between the sites as well, and that could be kind of a long, drawn-out process, if you will. Uptake with these individuals that were doing this, was it difficult? Was it something that happened quickly?
It happened very quickly. So as we rolled it down from the executive downwards, it was very quickly. So department heads having to deal with or collaborate with a new organisation, new structures, new business needs, and having to be able to discuss across directly the two organisations was quite good. I think that was one of the key tools that we used to actually become one organisation from two.
That's great. I appreciate that. So Ashlen, I'm going to pop over to a new one here if you don't mind. So would love to talk about some real results that you've seen as far as ROI goes and impact to your business after you rolled out Link and now Skype for Business, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience.
Yeah, I think the one that stands out the most, and we had discussion about this in a leadership forum the other day, was the time we save with our staff between the sites. The driving has all disappeared now. The reservation of vehicles, we share the same problem as Bill. And also just the ease of access to information. They would be able to attend EBA meetings, and we'd be able to schedule them properly now, and having the support of Minato, because they always felt as if they were our poor cousins, so to say, and they felt part of the organization. It brought everything back together. We fall under one brand now. It's no sort of separation between the two. Other real world results, we try to focus, because we're a zoo, and we're a not-for-profit organization as well, we count on the visitors that come through those gates. So it's taking the technology we've built and adapting it out there now, giving them a new experience, etc., and sort of creating a bit of a buzz and attracting those potential visitors and potential sponsors as well.
So I believe too, when you started rolling out the videos, I believe it drove a ton of traffic over to Monarto Zoo as well, correct?
That's it, yeah. So during our first live surgery procedure, we had the big screen out at the front of Adelaide Zoo. And funny enough, the people that live in Adelaide didn't actually know about Monarto Zoo. We've had it for 35 years. And a lot of interest was generated out there. We actually converted a lot of those potential visitors into members on the day as well. So just with a simple experiment and showing what's happening on the other side, we showcased a few animals using the Skype, or at the time, Link mobile. The guys walking around the paddocks at Monarto, and they saw a few lions. And to see, we've only got 3 in Adelaide, but we've got 12 out at Monarto. They didn't even know we had that sort of animals out there. And a lot of interest was generated, and it drove the guys back down to Monarto.
So gentlemen, any responses to this so far? Because I have a couple of thoughts around this, but I'd love to hear any responses between the 3 of you guys. All right, let me take this one. So I heard, and I love, Don, you brought up this point, and yours as well, is this enterprise social and how you shared this out with your adoption to get the buy-in. Look, we do this all the time, but what I heard from you, Ashlen, as well, is enterprise social combined with this unified communications approach is flattening our companies. And it's amazing to me how easily I stay in touch with people across the world at Microsoft, which you can imagine is tough in a massive organization like ours. But I'd be hard-pressed to believe there's anybody here from Microsoft in our region across the world that couldn't tell you what our core pillars are right now. And there's not many companies that actually have that nowadays, and it's because we leverage enterprise social and unified communications. We can scale out meetings that we have. We have town halls with Satya Nadella where he goes on and our CEO will speak to everybody at the organization and allow us to ask him questions. So I think that's amazing. So great points from both of you. We'll let Billy, I know you haven't touched on this one, some of the tangible results, though, going back to that last question of your implementation.
Yeah, we've talked about, for our core business and our executive and our, the other area that we've actually have started is telemedicine. So we are actually, previously we had endocrinology team, periodically fly out from Sydney to Dubbo, Armidale, Orange, quarterly, and whole clinics. And they would have clinicians there as well. But in between that period, there was no interaction with the patient. So what has happened now is that they are using Link. So our endocrinologist has, dual screen and set up in his office and so forth. So he holds, Link clinics. Well, Link, he goes to, a VC unit throughout Tambo Gateway, and we have sessions, or we go directly by Link to different areas so that he holds telemedicine sessions, and we have other modalities that have started using it far more. Our next, and that's saving money, travel. He can better care for the patient. We have discussed about, utilising going to Skype to the patients to check. Some of them have done it. We're looking at a long-term solution. How do we actually interact more with the patient via Skype or something similar?
I love it. And Don, I'll pass that off to you. So real ROI implications of your actual rollout of Link and Skype for Business. Yeah,
so our transformation to what inside of Plantronics we call a smarter working environment actually had 3 pillars to it. So there was an infrastructure facilities rebuild, if you like an activity-based working, restructure in our head office and in our European HQ. So we call that the bricks. The bytes was Link and social in the enterprise. It was Windows 7 as the platform at that point in time. And then there was an element around what we call the behaviours. So there's actually been some HR policies put in place. One of them is called Smarter Meetings. I'll just quickly, if I can, Jace, touch on this, is we now have, and there's training around it, if you're going to host a meeting out of our Santa Cruz head office, it has to be Skype, there's $2, Skype-enabled meeting. So anybody inside of the Plantronics organisation globally, so if I need to join a meeting with product team in head office, it's already Link enabled. In Santa Cruz, they have to hold it in a video-enabled room. So I can actually see who's on the other end of it. And it has to end 5 minutes before the advertised ending time, which actually drives some behaviours around how product marketing and product management and us in the field talk and ramble on. So all of that paints a picture, but where that's actually had a result for us, in head office we sit on the edge of Silicon Valley, and so competition for talent from a 50-year-old audio headset company versus the likes of Google, etc. in the Valley is very, very hard. Our staff retention rates have dropped from, staff turnover has dropped from 13% to 3.2% in head office. And that's the result of that transformation around bricks, bytes and behaviours. So that's probably the core one for us.
That's a great point. And Bill, did you guys, I believe you guys had a reduction in the turnover as well. Am I going crazy here? I was talking to John about your experience.
We've got a very low turnover. I mean, if you talk about our own staff, I think, well, I've been there for a very long time, but I mean, most clinical staff, I mean, in dealing with paediatrics, I think that from a clinical perspective, they're different people, but their experience is what they're after of the organisation.
Sure.
The organisation is very IT literate, and I think going elsewhere, where in New South Wales or other places where they're just starting that journey, and they are moving very quickly, it's a different scenario. So we tend to retain our staff really well. But our internal investment is more doing more with the same, because we have a budget that we have to adhere to. But being able to actually provide better services and better experience is what we're after for the patient as well as the staff.
So we have about 6 minutes left. I wanted to, and thank you again, gentlemen. Wanted to ask you one final question, and then if we have some time, I'd actually love to open it real quick to the audience. So final quick 2 to 3 pieces of advice for some of our customers here that may be looking into rolling out a solution like that. And love you to touch on really the challenges to be aware of, if you could, more so than just the positives on this, so you actually can foresee some of the challenges you're going to see. If you don't mind. Don, if you want to start, go for it.
Yes, I guess 2. 1, as an individual employee inside of an organisation, the thing that overcame a challenge for me was the accessibility to individual how-to guides, video setups, because I want to learn myself how to do this. I'm a remote employee, I'm a road warrior, I don't have time to fly to Santa Cruz and sit in a classroom. So number 1. And the second in learnings I see as an ecosystem partner dealing with customers deploying Link and now Skype for Business is don't leave the end user device to the end of your project. The deployments that we see that are exceptionally successful, and I was talking to a customer out there this morning, is one where they put the last component that the user's actually going to talk to and listen through in their strategy and in their planning phase are the ones that at the end their adoption rates are very, very high. So 2 elements there.
Appreciate that. Ashlen, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, we found that we've got quite an older generation at the zoos, as saying people don't tend to leave us often. So they found it difficult to adapt to the change, speaking to people through video and computers. So we had to illustrate that through training sessions and simple how-to guides as well. So that's something that just to sell to the older crowd out there. The other thing is support. You guys won't be sort of, support is easier in Sydney and the bigger metropoles, but something that a smaller town would look at is just general support and getting engineers when you do run into a bit of a fix.
No, thank you. And Bill, finally?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, I mean, support was the big thing. I mean, being able to train and people very quickly was something. I mean, demand was an issue for us because, using it, we had limited bandwidth in certain areas, so the experience wasn't as good as it should have been at the time. So you've got to look at that side of it, and your devices. Again, I totally agree that that adds to the experience, and also understanding the limitations of the product. So because there are certain areas that it doesn't work as well as a VC unit. So prime example, video within video and streaming video. So if you are looking at it from a clinical perspective and then want to see a high resolution video within your videos stream, it didn't work as well as that. So that was one of the things challenges we had to deal with in certain clinical areas, but we haven't overcome that one yet, but we will over time. But it is just knowing limitations and understanding, what the business wants or what they're trying to achieve, and each particular area is different.
I appreciate that. And the good news is with our new Skype for Business servers, we're actually improving the video quality there. So that's a good step
I know
in the
that.
right direction.
I have to plan a change.
But look, we have about 3 minutes. We'd love to open it up to 1 or 2 questions if everybody in the audience wants to take advantage of these gentlemen up here. Yes, please.
I'm curious to know in the open plan office if you had any perceived or actual issues around disruption, young people using Link.
To me?
Anyone?
Yes, I mean, there is a point. What we're actually issuing for people who want their own headphones as well, that actually adds to the experience. With most PCs, you can actually, if you've got, with your phone, you get a headphone, you just plug into that and it works. So a lot of people are using their own personal headphones, but it does add to the noise. But it's like a phone conversation. It's the same situation.
So people accepted it.
Yep.
Don or Ashlen, either of you guys have a response to that?
Yeah.
We have the same issue as well. In our accounts division, we've got 4 accountants and they deal with both zoos, and they were getting sort of a flurry of Link or Skype for Business conversations, and we addressed the issue by using sort of wireless microphones, etc., headsets, and that sort of calmed the fire, so to say.
Yeah, and as a headset manufacturer, we look at how is the noise isolation work. I'll try not to make it too much of a sales pitch, but there is part of what we're doing in the design of the headsets is to help to provide a concentration zone for the user in a larger, noisier open plan office. Happy for you to come talk to me later about exact speeds and feeds scenarios. The other element in our head office in Santa Cruz, they actually deliberately looked at the acoustics of the design of the new building. So no hard surfaces, even soft panelling between partitions, and can certainly talk you through some of the sound masking technology we implemented in the office, not to make it a library, but actually to make sure that people are not being distracted by conversations around them. And we're now bringing some of that into the actual headsets that we're producing and bringing to market as well. So happy to talk more afterwards. I
mentioned earlier, we were talking about not only the technology, but your culture and the design of your workplace goes into actually creating adoption here. We had this conversation, I remember, and it's fascinating. I'd urge you to talk to Don about this, about the way you designed your Santa Cruz office. So I think I'm being cut off here by the change of the slide. Thank you all very much. If we can get a round of applause for our great participants out there.